morning, everybody. Happy Sunday for most of you. This is the day you start your week off. A lot of you guys are probably getting ready to go fellowship at your respective places of worship. I wish you the best. Some of you are using today as your day of recovery and reflection. There are others like myself who use this day as a launching pad for the remainder of the week. Sundays are very important to me. It's a time of reflection to look at the previous week, to look at opportunities seized, opportunities missed, progressions, the lack thereof, and so forth. So everybody has their different way of engaging each day of the week and how they relate to it. And I'm not here to tell you how to relate to the day. What I am here to do is hopefully help you take on a mindset of possibility and being able to exact or create change in your life that is suitable or in alignment with what you say you want. Because what I see a lot of is people talking about what they want, basically kind of daydreaming off into space, but never really truly taking action. And there's a distinct difference between a vision or a dream and a wish list or fantasy. When I use the word dream, I'm not talking about the daydreaming. I'm talking about that thing that's so deeply implanted inside of you that you can't shake it, that it keeps you up at night, that you sit up and you're caught off in a daze while people are talking to you. You're lost in it because it's so deeply ingrained into your psyche that you can't shake it, that it literally is driving you. But see, the difference and the distinction between the two is purpose and action. In other words, when you have a sense of identity of your purpose and your passion and a sense of identity, you take action. It's real easy to see when a person really truly believes in something that they say they want and that they say they're going after, because it's immediately followed by a high level of activity, massive action, massive effort. But you'll find people who are aware of the way things are done. They've seen other people do it, but they don't believe that they can do it themselves. But they've said they want it, and they'll engage it, but there's no massive action. There's no true commitment. They're doing it because they've got to be able to go back and say they tried, but they're not. See, no one is going to invest massive action into something they don't believe is possible. Now, they'll go out and they'll do it because somebody said you have to do it, or because they know people are watching, or because they need to be able to say they tried. And so they'll go out and they'll do it, but they're not investing in massive action, massive effort, intense energy, determination, and push the will to getting it done. They're just going out there and going through the motions, and it's going to be reflected in the results they get, which is only going to underwrite and support their belief that it wasn't possible in the first place. And that cyclical process continues on a downward spiral of inactivity and non-efficacious results that produce absolutely nothing. So where you start at is setting your beliefs, setting your mind, and actually taking action. But my journey in life really, as far as growing, started early in life. But I would say somewhere around midway through high school, I was confronted with two questions that totally set the path and the course of my life. The first question was, with all of the mechanisms, all of the blueprints, all of these master teachers, all of the historical evidence, everything that we have at our disposal, why is it that the Black collective has not progressed in the slightest in closing the wealth gap and assuming social and political power? And what's the cause of that? The other question was, why is it that some people succeed and some, despite seemingly having unbelievable resources, fail? So those two would actually intersect, consistently over the course of my life as I learned more and more about what happened. And normally when I sit down for these video sessions, I just come to you and I just come from the heart. When you've invested the time, the energy, and effort into knowing what I know and operating where I operate, you can do that. I can sit down and talk for hours about what I know because that's what I've lived. That's why I've invested my time in being who I am so that I can have that. And normally when I speak at a conference, I don't know what it is that I'm attempting to accomplish because I will either have set that conference up or I have communicated in depth with the people who set it up to understand what message a theme we're talking about and what we're trying to accomplish. And then I will feed off of the energy of the people in the room, and I will feed and deal with and address the energy they're sending me, which lets me know where they're at. I'll address it, and I can go from there normally without ever sitting up and doing an outline. Now, I'll sit up and I'll think about it. Sometimes I will, but today I actually sit down and I wrote down something because there are some points I want to talk to. When I think about why people succeed, why some people succeed and why some people don't. When I first started out, there were preconceived notions. Some people have a silver spoon in their mouth. Some people just have resources. It's not what you know, who you know. I went through all of these preconceived notions because that's what people had, told me and spoken to me and everything like that. You are a product of your environment. You're not a hostage or a prisoner of your environment, but you are a product of your environment, meaning that the environment you grew up in will have an influence on the paradigms that are set in your life that control how you view life and what you expect from life, how you see the world affecting you, and how you see your capacity or ability to affect the world. And so depending on what environment you grew up in, it's crazy. But the first thing I want to tell you before we get started is one of the things I noticed is we live in a world where people like to hold people hostage, and people actually like to remain in emotional and psychological bondage. I'm not talking about being a physical hostage. I'm talking about being a hostage to your past. I'm talking about being a hostage to the fact that you didn't know your father. I'm talking about being a hostage to a situation where someone broke your heart. I'm talking about being a hostage to a situation where you were mistreated, and you're sitting up and every day your happiness is predicated on this person that wronged you coming to you and making amends, telling you they're sorry, telling you they understand what they did wrong. It's a bunch of you that have been in relationships that cannot enter into a good, solid, healthy relationship because you're still holding on to the anger and the frustration you have with the other person because they haven't acknowledged how awesome you are, how wonderful you are. They haven't come to the understanding that they broke the heart of an unbelievable person, that they made a mistake, and that they just should be totally outdone with themselves. And you wake up every day and you're sitting up and you're living your life depending on hoping that someone comes back to you and makes amends for something they've done wrong to you so you can move on. You're going to have to let it go. You do not have to mortgage your future to pay for your past. Some of you are living off of past mistakes. You did something wrong to someone. You hurt someone. You did something that caused some disruption in the lives of others, or you damaged your own progress with some decisions that you made. You made some poor decisions and you had to reap the benefits of them. Now you're holding yourself hostage with guilt. You won't let yourself go. You're literally mortgaging your future, trying to pay for your past. Your past is in the past. You can't pay for it. It's done. What you have to do is take what you have left and make that matter. But man, and then I sit up and I start to look at some of the things that, and this is going to be one of those accountability things. This is going to be one of those things where some of the things you're going to hear me say is not going to be things that are comfortable. I'm not here to caress your ego. I'm not here to collar you. That's the first thing I'm going to get to. As a matter of fact, I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to try to awaken you to the possibilities that are in front of you that you are missing because you're consistently looking behind you. Now, one of the first things that I noticed when I started to look at and say, okay, why do people succeed? Because what I found out, one of the first things I found out first was there was no common background. There were people who came from poverty, people who came from being orphans. There were people who came from uh, dysfunctional families, people who came from wealth, people who came from educated backgrounds, people who didn't graduate high school. And so it wasn't any of those common things that everyone always tells us. You got to get an education. You got to do this. You got to do. First of all, academic attainment is not education. Academic attainment is a skill set necessary to do certain things. An education is the preparation and empowerment of an individual holistically to go out into a world and compete at a level where they stand a chance to win and have the power to change the world around them so that it benefits them and those they love. That's education. The idea that academic attainment or academic achievement sets the standard for education is one of the problems we face in this country, is that there's a great deal of prominence given to degrees when you got a bunch of people with degrees that don't make 1/3 of the money that some of the people with these skill sets and hustle and grind are making with no high school diploma. And we're understanding, and yet that's what we're being focused on. I'm not talking down the education, academic achievement or academic excellence. Obviously, it's something that, you know, I've thrived in, but that's not what defines me. That's not what makes me. You could take all that away from me and I will still be the person I am today because I'm a reader. I'm a person that wants to go out and know. I'm a person that's not going to be satisfied with, and drove my parents crazy because I grew up in that era because I said so. Oh, that's not going to cut it with me. Why? And I had to know the why, which led me on this quest. Well, anyway, one of the first things that I learned is we live in a coddle culture. Everybody's coddled. Nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings. Everybody would rather have their ego stroked, be coddled, than to be challenged, than to be critiqued, than to be called out, than to be put out front. See, I don't want you to tell me what's wrong with me. I just want you to make me feel better about my situation. See, I'm not necessarily ready to commit to changing my situation. I just need to be able to be more comfortable in it. See, that's how we've been trained. We've been coddled. We've been talked to. We've been caressed. We've been held and hugged, but we haven't been put to the test. We haven't been put to the flame. And that coddling leads us to seek comfort at every chance we get. We're more concerned with comfort than we are character. We're more concerned with comfort than we are progress. We're more concerned with what we can find that feels good than we are about challenging ourselves. And I'm not just saying challenging yourself physically. I'm talking about stepping out in areas that are uncomfortable. The one thing I can tell you is I'm very rarely in a comfortable place. And here's why. The moment I feel I've mastered something, it's time to move on. The moment I feel like, okay, I've mastered this, that's how I've got these multiple disciplines that I use to help people. Because, okay, I mastered this, but there's got to be more because this can't just be it. What's next? Then I move into the next field and the next field and the next field. And I'm study learning, I'm study mastering. I'm nowhere near where I'm going to be when I leave this place. And I'm hoping I'm going to leave people with some unbelievable things that they can use to change their life in the process. But if you sit up and you a person that's part of the coddle culture, you just want to be told how awesome you are. You want to be told it's going to be okay. Or you just went through a rough spot. Let me help you. Let me hug you. I mean, yes, you need to show love to people who are going through some things, but you also need to sit down with them and challenge them. You can't allow them to get stuck. See, pain is inevitable. Pain is inevitable in this life. You are going to face pain. You're going to go into something. They're just things you don't control that is going to ensure that in life you're going to experience pain. That's not the problem. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. See, suffering is the decision to identify with the pain at a level that demands that you stay there. You identify with the pain so much that you connect with it. You identify with the fact that you were abandoned by your first husband, to the fact that you can't get married again because that's what you identify. You identify with being from an impoverished background, and so you focus so much on what you don't have that you never ever embrace the idea or examine the possibility of what you could have. And you don't understand that what you focus on the most is what you get. It's that thing that you keep doing. We don't challenge one another. Then there's the other side of things. Some of us experienced our first encounter with success too easily. and then we got it, and then we got softened by success. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You experienced a little success, got out there, started living in it, stopped pushing, stopped trying, got comfortable. And now that it's time to grind to get to the next level, now that it's time to make some sacrifices to get to the next level, now that it's time to plug in again, you've gotten so comfortable in your success and where you're at right now, you don't want to push anymore. But what you don't understand is you're not staying still, you're regressing. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. You're either climbing or you're descending. You're never, ever static. We don't live in a static world. We live in a rhythmic world that's constantly in motion, and things are always happening. So you're either advancing or you're declining or regressing. And you need to understand that the momentum you build is what keeps you moving forward. The moment you stop too long to celebrate a success and start to live in that success, you find you get more, it becomes more and more difficult to come out of it. Why? Because your momentum has slowed. You've got to take momentum. You get to a point, you get what you got. You take that quick moment, that day. Okay, I hit my goal. You celebrate that. You enjoy that. You need to do that. But then the next day you get up and you start grinding again. There's another goal to go after. That's something else to conquer. That's something else to master. There's another book to read. There's all of these things that I need to do to advance myself. There's more I need to study about this. There's more of life I need to engage. There's more. It's always something out there that will grow you, that will advance you, because your advancement is based on your personal growth. How are you advancing in knowledge? How are you advancing in state of mind? How are you advancing spiritually? How are you advancing psychologically? The more you advance yourself personally, the more capacity you create to advance yourself in any other area of life. You cannot sustain a healthy marriage if you haven't developed a healthy self, a healthy sense of personal identity, self-identity, self-worth, self-value, purpose, and responsibility. If you don't understand that, you can't. You'll be in it. You'll want it. You'll say you want it. You can be crazy about the person, but if you haven't developed into what you need to be, you can't sustain what it takes to be that particular situation in that marriage. You can't be a wealthy person if you haven't developed the potential inside of yourself. First of all, to generate the revenue. Second of all, to make the right decisions. Third of all, to be able to have a mentality that supports it. And on and on and on down the line. There's always something that you have to grow into. If you don't have it, it's not because you don't want it, it's because you haven't become it. Another thing that I found is that most people attempt to address their issues on the idea of parallel existences. And what I found is most things don't exist on parallel existences when they're considered opposites. They're not really opposites. They're two different extremes of the same spectrum. I've said this before. So a lot of people are looking at fear and courage, or happiness and sadness, whatever the situation is, faith and doubt, and all of these things being in parallel. In other words, you got faith and doubt in your life, and you're trying to fight doubt while building faith. You're trying to fight sadness while building happiness. You're trying to fight poverty while building wealth. The thing is, they're on two extreme spectrums. They're not existing parallel. They're not side by side parallel, and you're battling between each other. One of the most difficult things to do is overcome a state of existence by battling what you don't want in your life, because the more energy you put into battling what you don't want, the more focus you have on it, the more your reticular activating system, that part of the brain that filters out the things that are not important to you, is going to focus on identifying that thing. The more you fight the thing you don't want in your life, the more amplified it becomes. You don't fight the thing, you embrace the thing you want. That's one of the primary principles behind the law of attraction. It's not in fighting what I don't want, it's embracing what I do want. And because things exist on the same spectrum in extremes, I don't have to fight fear. The more I move towards courage, the more it moves me away from fear. I don't have to fight poverty. The more I adjust to being wealthy and understanding the principles of wealth and understanding and taking on a mindset of wealth, the more I move away from an impoverished mindset. I don't have to sit up and worry about happiness. Fighting sadness or depression. The more I decide in my mind that I'm going to embrace being happy, that I'm going to make decisions that make me happy, that I'm going to go after things that provide the best foundation for happiness, happiness. The more I move towards happiness, the less sad I am. That's what this is about. It's about stop fighting against the negative. Start embracing and engaging the positive. They are diametrically opposed in distance and proximity. And as you move closer to one, you will automatically distance yourself from the other. Stop giving energy to the thing that you don't want. Start giving energy to the thing you do want. And you will find that you are making the progressions without the negative brain energy you put off in the fight. You're trying to fight negative thoughts. But all you keep thinking about is the negative thoughts. Guess what happens? More negative thoughts. It's the way we're built. But instead of fighting the negative thoughts, when one comes, don't fight it. Think of the opposite. And just start engaging that. If it's something that says you're going to fail in your business, think of 10 ways you're going to succeed. They're out there. They're both out there. What you tell yourself, your self-talk, is what you're going to get in front of you. Have you ever noticed that when you're having a discussion with someone or you're having a disagreement with someone, especially with social media and all the technology we have now and Google and Bing and everything like that, to where you can pretty much get anything, or you got these news feeds and everything strung out. Have you ever noticed that when you're having a disagreement with someone on any topic, it doesn't matter what, it can be the best color for a car, it don't matter, whatever the topic is. Have you ever noticed that when you really, really, truly believe something and you're arguing with a person, that everything that supports your argument is coming down your news feed now? It's popping up on Google searches. Somebody sent it to you in your inbox. The truth of the matter is it's always been there. And the opposite side of the argument is there at the same time, but because you have focused in on that particular end of it, and you are so centered on it, your reticular activating system literally filters out the other side of the argument that's also being, you can find anything you want on the internet right now. I don't care how crazy your belief is. If you believe something, you can go find somebody that has put something on the internet that tells you you're right. That doesn't validate it, but what I'm getting at is your mind is going to focus and filter out the things that you're not focused on. It's going to identify what's important, what you're focused on, and then it's going to highlight all the stuff that falls in line with what you focus on. You're making the choices every day with that. And then another thing I see is people get overwhelmed by their desires and they don't ever start. They'll sit up and say, this is what I want. Just imagine whether it's, let's talk about money, because everybody, if there's a saying I've heard, I can't remember who said it, but I think it's Les Brown, but there's a saying that money can't fix everything, but everybody wants to find out for themselves. The truth of the matter is that, and this is the real truth, money cannot in and of itself provide happiness. That's something that's internal. But what money can do, money can alleviate strains and stresses associated with not being able to take care of your family. Money can do a whole bunch of things. Money provides resources to go out and touch other people's lives. And it's amazing how we've been misguided about what money is. Money is neutral. Money doesn't have ill intent or benevolent intent. Money is a tool. Who uses the tool determines what the money does. And that's where you work and that's what you climb. But anyway, the thing is, what I find out with a lot of people is they set these goals and then they look at it and say, okay, let's money. Say, I want to be a millionaire. Well, if your entire life, your entire adult life, you're 35 years old, your entire adult life, you've made no more than $35,000 or $40,000 a year. And you say, all of a sudden, I want to be a millionaire. And then you start crunching numbers and seeing what that means in comparison to what you already make. And then you go, oh, wow. What I can tell you is this: if you make $30,000 a year, there's a way to actually make your annual income, your monthly income, in a relatively short period of time, relatively speaking. When you look at the fact, if you use that over life compared to the alternative. What am I getting at? What I'm saying is, if I look at, okay, you want to go from 30,000 to being a millionaire, and you say, okay, $1 million, I'm going after $1 million. That is an overwhelming thought. And you look at it, and because you can't logically box it and make sense of it, You step away from it because that was foolish thinking. No, you didn't break it down. There is absolutely nothing in this life you can't do, but you can't sit up and it's like taking a whole loaf of bread. You can eat that bread, but you're not going to sit up and stuff that whole thing in your mouth at one time and eat it. You're going to have problems. But if you go at it in the right way over a certain period of time, you're going to get it done. It's the same thing with anything in life. Break it down into digestible pieces and just go to nibbling at it. And what will happen is the more you nibble at it, the more you increase your bite radius, the more you increase your digestive capacity. And where you started out making just $10 more a day, you now are making $15 and $20 more a day. And then one day you look up, you're making a whole $100 or $500 more than you made in a day. And it all started with just taking the first step and saying, I'm just going to make a nickel more than I make currently. And then I'll find a way, because if you can find a way to make a nickel more, you can find a way to make a dime more. If you can find a way to make a dime more, it's a process. And what happens is several things are happening when you do it and you take those bites. Instead of trying to swallow the whole thing, get choked, and then spit it out and say, I can't do it. When you take those bites, you start to build confidence because you start to get these little micro progressions, these micro victories, these micro engagements where you go in and say, man, I remember when I started, I didn't. I remember when I started, this was this. Now look at where I'm at, and you're able to see the progressions. What I look at when I wake up every day is I look at the goal and know that it's still there. Am I there yet? Not even close. But am I where I was a month ago? Am I where I was a year ago? Am I where I was 5 years ago? Absolutely not. I'm able to know the progressions. I'm able to look down. I've got numerous metrics that I measure myself by in every area of life, and I'm looking at it. Am I growing? Am I progressing? If that's so important to measure yourself. I believe it was Socrates that says an unexamined life is not worth living. And I think that we have to stop periodically. I try to do it every day. I try to wake up in the morning and I prime myself. I get myself in the right mindset before anybody gets up, before I have to engage anything, before I look at my phone, before I do anything. I get up, turn the alarm off, get myself dressed, come down, and I prime. Priming for me is a process of meditation, prayer, and vision. I meditate, I get myself in the right frame of mind, then I pray. And I mean, I send out energy and uplifting to every person I can think about. I start with my wife and my children by name. And I send them energy, I send them positivity, I send them with what I have power to do that. I communicate with my creator at a level that I cannot explain. It's not traditional, it's not what everybody else says, and I don't tell people how to do that. How you do that should be something personal anyway. I don't have the same relationship with my kids that my wife does. And so I'm not mimicking what my wife does, and that's the danger of religion. Religion will have everybody doing the same thing the same way and expecting to get the results they need in their situation. Your relationship is going to be just like your relationship with the creator is going to be just like your relationship with your parents. Each one of the siblings has a different relationship based on their own particular personality, needs, and desires. And you have to be able to hit on that level. You've got to be able to trust on that level. That comes from a uniqueness of engagement. I don't tell people how to do that. I show people how I do it and give them an idea. And I say, okay, now go out and make it your own. But that's what I do. So after I do that, then I sit down and I say, okay, what were the goals for yesterday? What did I hit? What did I miss? What's my long-term goals? Where am I at in comparison to my 5-year goals? Where am I at? And the thing with 5-year goals now is crazy is that you can get a general idea, but the specificity that we used to be able to use with 5-year goals is crazy because of how fast and rapidly the world is evolving. Things are going to change so much over the next 6 months that what you look at now and say you want 5 years from now may come in 6 months. Or it may totally evolve to where it's no longer even relevant. And you've got to be able to adjust on the fly and adjust those goals. So you can get just 6 months and maybe out to a year kind of nailed down. But what you want is just a path that you can travel, that you can make adjustments. Your ability to make adjustments as you're moving is what's going to determine how well you do in life, because I guarantee you what you think is right there is not going to be there when you get there. And your ability to sit up and say, okay, I'm a little bit off. I need to move a little to the right. I need to try a little harder. I need to wake up 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes earlier. I need to go to bed so many minutes earlier or later. I need to look at what I'm doing and make the adjustments. But that's a part of how you make it and how you get through that. But the thing is, you've got to find a way to break down those goals. You got to find a way to break them down, make them small as you need to make them. There's a place that is so small that you can make the first increment of your progression so small that anyone can do it. Just get the step, get in the game, get that first step. I don't care what it is. I don't care. Write it on the wall, put it on a calendar, call somebody, commit to it, and take that first step. That first step is the biggest one, because that procrastination will always be there. First of all, schedule it. Remember, I told you it's not real until you schedule it. Until you put a date and time on it, it's not real, because without a date and time for that goal, there's no urgency, because you can just keep putting it off. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get started when this happens, when that happens, when this happens. You put a goal down, you set a date, and you get started on it. There is no perfect time. There is no perfect opportunity. The difference between successful people and people who aren't successful is successful people, non-successful people get up and they're hoping and wishing for the perfect opportunity. They're waiting on somebody to knock on their door and hand them the perfect opportunity at the perfect time, when it all fits and slides into their little lives exactly how they think and thought and dreamed it would. That's what non-successful people do. They keep waiting on this mystical happening to take place. Successful people wake up in the morning and they go out and find the opportunities they need to do the things that they desire to do. And if for some reason the opportunity does not exist, they create it. That is the difference. They're not offering excuses. They're not coming up with all the reasons why they can't. They're simply saying, hey, this is what I need, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I am going to do now. And then the next thing is, this is huge, the I can't culture. One thing I remember, by my 11th grade English teacher, who actually took me in when I was in the 9th grade. She came in contact with me and took me in and just stuck with me and literally requested that I be in her class in the 11th grade, and she told me a lot of things. She shared so many things with me. She used to watch me, and one of the things she used to always tell me when she would see me hanging out with some of my boys from the hood, she would sit up and say, hey, come here. Say, son, association brings about assimilation. And what she was saying is, if you hang around someone long enough, you can't help but pick up their habits. You may pass on some of your habits to them, but you can also pick up some of their habits. I believe Euripides, Paul quoted Euripides in the Bible, but it was actually Euripides that says, do not be deceived, evil company corrupts good habits. And so that was that. But one thing she told me that I still hold dear to, she said, son, you are remarkable. You are exceptional. There's absolutely nothing in this world that you will not be able to do. The word can't will never apply to you. And I literally took it literally. Number one is, she was a person of authority. She was a person who had invested a substantial amount of time into encouraging me and lifting me. And so I gave it a lot of validity. When she said the word can't does not apply and will never apply to me, I took it literal. And I just started telling myself, the word can't doesn't belong in my vocabulary. The word can't be applied to anything I desire. The word can't is not welcome in my periphery. And I started going after stuff that people thought were crazy. And I just kept going after it. But we live in a can't culture. What do I mean? Researchers have actually produced a pretty substantial amount of empirical and pragmatic data on negative engagement and positive engagement. And it has been determined that by the time the average person reaches the age of 17, they have been told you can't 150,000 times. At that same point in life, they've only been told they can 5,000. That's 30,000 you can't for every one you can. And then when you look at the fact that negative information and negative data and negative stimulation has a greater density than positive, meaning that if you tell somebody something negative, it takes a number of different positive engagements in that same area to overcome it. So think about it. When you have 150,000 times somebody's told you you can't by the time you turn 17, and you've only been told you can 5,000. What is the likelihood that you've taken on a mindset that most of the stuff in life can't be done? And if no one ever interrupts that pattern of can't, you will engage it because it's natural, and you will dogmatically fight to defend it. That's stupid. That's foolish. That's just crazy. All of the different things that you've been told. But the truth of the matter is you've been conditioned to believe you can't. If it's any level of difficulty that pulls you out of your comfort zone, it's just simply easier to say that can't be done. I'm not going to waste my time on it. But the truth of the matter is there's no such thing as can't. I believe it was Henry Ford that said, the person that believes they can and the person that believes they can are usually both right. Why? Because it is the beliefs that you have within your mind. I tell people all the time, the only limits you have are the limits you accept with your mind. Now, I did not in any way say that life would be easy. I did not. You're going to get knocked down. Matter of fact, you're going to get punched in the mouth by life. Life is going to knock the crap out of you. If you're trying to avoid that, this is the crazy thing. Even when you try to avoid it by not taking any risk, life is still going to knock the crap out of you. The difference is you won't have the fortitude to get up when it does, if you are avoiding it. If you make up in your mind that I'm built for this, that no matter what life brings my way, I'm built for this. I have within my design the gifting, the talent, the genius, the fortitude, and the power to overcome anything life throws at me. I'm built for this. And when life throws that punch, you take it, even if it knocks you down. You get up, you dust yourself off, you hold yourself up, and you ask life, what's next? You get up, you push, you fight. That's life. You're going to get hit. There is no circumvention of the vicissitudes of life. There's no circumvention of life struggles, life heartaches, life delays, life pains, life's losses. You're going to experience them. I don't care how hard you hide from them. I don't care what you do to go around and circumvent them. Life is going to find you. And when it finds you, it's going to kick the crap out of you. The question is, what are you going to do when you get knocked down? See, I can't coddle you. I'm not going to tell you that if you just do this and you do this and do this, life will be a lot easier. No, what I can tell you is the more you aspire to something, the more you demand of yourself, the more you sit up and say, this is what I'm going to have, the tougher it's going to be. There's a reason why only a small percent of people in this world experience success at a phenomenal level, because it's not easy. Because it's not that it's impossible, it's that it's not easy. It's that you got to commit to it. It's that you got to wake up before everybody else does. It's that you got to stay up a little later. It's that you got to study harder. It's that you got to put in the time to get better at it. It's that you got to take 1,000 no's to get one yes. It's all those things coupled up into the fact that if I want it, I'm going to have to go hard in the paint to have it. That's the problem. It's not whether you're capable or not. It's the distance you're willing to go. You know, when you can sit up and just fathom for a second that the average person has heard you can't 150,000 times by the time they're 17, and they've only heard they can 5,000 times. And we wonder why we have an I can't culture. Think about it. I grew up in a house in a culture where parents were trained to prepare their kids for failure. They didn't know they were preparing them for failure. They were thinking that they were preparing them to face reality. Look, life's going to be hard. You're going to want to do all this stuff over here, but the truth of the matter is you got all these odds stacked against you. Number one is you're going to, especially if you were black, you're going to have to be 3 times better than any white person. that you come in contact with, that you're competing with for any position, whether it's employment, whether it's in business, whether it's in academia, whatever it is, you're going to have to do that. Then you're going to go out and you're going to be judged by the color of your skin. You're going to go out and people are not going to like you just because you're black. People are going to look at you and assume a certain thing about you and treat you a certain way. You're just not going to be liked a whole lot. So don't go out thinking that you can have everything that they have, because they have this, and this. It's all these reasons why you can't, and all these reasons why they can't. And it starts to explain and justify why some people have stuff and don't, especially when you can look at it and it seems like a certain group has a lot more than anybody else. It starts to sound true. Well, they got all that stuff. It's just meant for them. This is what most people are going to get. Maybe I'll get lucky and I'll be good at athletics and I'll play professional sports. Or maybe I'll get lucky and land a music contract with a big label, or maybe I'll be one of those, or whatever the situation, to be one of the few that get out. But other than that, I'm pretty much relegated to just surviving. No. You've got to go back and say, you know what? I understand where my parents were because I understand what they were given. But see, I come to understand that it's not the race that's going to determine success. It's not the level of education of the parents that will determine the success of the kid. It's not any of those things. It's what's instilled in the child's mind of what's possible. If I believe, and I believe without a shadow of a doubt, that if I put my mind to doing something, I can have it. There's absolutely nobody that can stop me. That's the very definition of destiny. That the more you try to stop it, the more you ensure it happens. When you determine that this is your destiny, what can stop you? But you've got to have in your mind that you can. Just take the T and the apostrophe off and keep it moving. But as long as you're sitting up buying into that whole idea of can't. See, one thing we do is when it gets uncomfortable, we look for ways to justify why we haven't become actively involved in progressing. Because this, because that. We have become masters of making excuses. And the problem is your tongue and your lips, your mouth was not designed for you to make excuses. It was designed for you to literally design and create and set forth your destiny, your future, to outline how you were going to live your life, to speak the power of words. As a man think, so is he. Out of the abundance of the heart, the greatest force of thought processes, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What are you feeding your heart? What are you feeding the innermost part of you? What are you feeding the non-conscious? We're not talking about the physiological heart. We're talking about the seat of the soul. We're talking about the very depth of what causes human behavior. We're talking about the subconscious mind and the non-conscious brain working together to create realities underneath. But what's under that? What's coming out of the abundance of the heart? What's coming out of all the negativity you've been feeding your brain over and over again that tells you that that suffering is your lot in life, that poverty is your lot in life, that broken relationships are your lot in life, that singleness is your lot in life, all these things that you have just simply accepted because you've told yourself it's your lot in life, because you've been taking in all that negative information, all those can'ts. You can't. And you've heard it so much that it's become a part of what you identify with. It's easier for you to say I can't than it is I can for anything. As a matter of fact, it feels uncomfortable when you say I can. You know why? The moment you say I can, you accept accountability. See, the moment you say I can, regardless of what it's going to take to make it happen, the moment you say I can, you lose the capacity to blame somebody else for your position. See, as long as you're sitting up saying I can't, you can blame somebody else for not being able. You can blame the system. You can blame your parents. You can blame the economy. You can blame all the things around you except yourself. But the moment you sit up and tell yourself, I can do it, you lose one of your playing cards, the blame card. And when you lose the blame card, there's nothing left but self-accountability. And now you got to own it. You got to sit up and say, if I'm not where I should be, it's on me. If I'm not producing and doing what I need to be doing, it's on me. And I do that all the time. I look up and say, this is not where I should be. I can't blame anybody. It's on me. Let me look back and see what I could have done differently. Let me look now and see what I can do now. Let me look and see what's going to be needed in the next several days, next several weeks, next several months. I've got to be able to sit up and look at it. I am never where I want to be. But I'm never blaming anybody for it. I'm sitting up and saying, I got to step up the game. I got to get more focused. I got to take more action. I've got to be more centered. I got to make more phone calls. I got to meet with more people. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. It's always about what I can do. Stop blaming everything else. And now I'm about to tick off my faith-based people, my religious people. Stop blaming God and stop blaming the devil. Y'all got two cop-outs. Y'all got two cop-outs. When something don't go the way you want it to go, that you really want, then it's God's will. When you go out and do something but dumb stupid, the devil made you do it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Start taking some accountability for your actions. You don't have it because you didn't put in the work, not because it wasn't God's will. You don't have it because you didn't stay in the game, not because it wasn't God's will, because it's God's will for you to have anything that is of value, that is of worth, that is of good, that can be used to better and encourage and strengthen the lives of others. There is nothing that will be withheld from you from God when you have the capacity to use it for good. So if you don't have it, it's because you didn't put in the work. It's because you didn't stick with it. It's because you didn't fight through. It's because you quit on yourself. Don't blame it on God. And when you sit up there and make that dumb decision, sit up and say, I've made them more than once. Well, I look up and go, what in the hell was I thinking when I did that? But I made that decision. I made that decision. You have the free volition to choose. That's on you. Most of you knew the consequences when you made the choice. Made it anyway. Others didn't take the time to weigh it. You better start weighing the cost. I'm a risk taker, but I know the risk when I take it. I've weighed the cost. I know what's out there. I know what I stand to win, and I know what I stand to lose. And because I weigh the cost, I know what I can give up in loss in order to gain more. So while I experience losses, I always gain more than I lose. It's a time measured truth. It's a time proven truth. I could go on and on and on about this, but let me explain something to you. A lot of you, and this is my last one, a lot of you are in a situation where you are making settlements. You know, settlements. If you ever been in a car accident and got injured, and you get one of those personal injury attorneys, and what happens is 9 times out of 10, they don't go to trial. Or if you've had a civil lawsuit, nine times out of 10, they don't go to trial. What they do is they go get with the other attorneys and you look at it and you weigh the chances of whether or not you can win the case or not. And based on how strong the case is, you get a settlement. It's not what you probably would have gotten if you'd have won and a jury would have awarded you money, but it's a settlement. It's safe. It means that I know I'm going to get this. So I'm going to settle for less than what I could have had because I know I can get it. That's what happens in 90% of the cases or more of accident, personal injury cases, is they receive settlements less than what they would have received if they would have took it and fought for what they actually felt they deserved, but made it easy on the attorney, made it easy on themselves, took what was sure rather than fighting for all of it because there was a risk associated with not getting anything. So you took a settlement. Problem is, so many of you are settling for something in life right now. So many of you are settling right now. You could be doing so much better in your marriage. You could be doing so much better in your business. You could be doing so much better on your job. You could be doing so much better in your community involvement. But what you're doing is settling. You're taking the safe way. You're settling. You know, stop settling. I didn't put a lot of links in today. If you guys want to really sit down and take a step. See, the thing is, at the end of the day, when I went on that search of why some people succeed and why some people don't, at the end of the day, it comes down to a personal choice. What's the distance you're willing to go to have what you want? The people who are successful have no distance that they aren't willing to travel within the confines of the law and morality. In other words, they don't harm other people and they don't break the law, but as far as grinding, as far as making sacrifice, as far as letting go of some things today to have greater things tomorrow, all those things they're willing to do, while others are not willing to get up. See, some people don't want to get up at 4 or 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Some people want to wait until the last minute and get up, throw on something and rush out the door and think that you're mentally prepared to engage what you're about to encounter in that world out there. When you go straight up, jump from one state of one mental state that you're in and sleeping into another mental state of trying to jump past the creative processes of transitioning into rational thought and run out there, and you're wondering why you're so discombobulated early in the morning when you should be so sharp. It's because you don't want to put in the time. You just want to sleep until the end. Sleep is more important to you than your success. Some of you hanging out with your boys is more important to you than your marriage. And we can go on and down the line of some of the things that we are allowing to be more important to us than the things that should really matter to us. Just kicking it and chilling is more important than putting in the grind and the hard work and the determination and the sacrifices necessary to have the things you say you really want. So you just sit around and pretend like you do. Let me explain something to you as I jump off of here. First and foremost, never allow anybody to define you by your current state. I posted a quote earlier this morning that says, never downgrade your vision to fit your current reality. Instead, upgrade your conviction to match your destiny. Let that stick in. Too many of you are settling. You are downgrading your vision and your dream to match your current reality because it's comfortable. It aligns. But you're missing something. You're losing. You're giving up so much. You should be upgrading your conviction, that determination, that determination, that declaration that it's possible. And that conviction should match your destiny, that thing for which you were designed for. That's where you should be striving. You should be living at the fullness of your potential. People talk to me about fear all the time. I overcame fear a long time ago. I literally just will not allow myself to feel fear. I get those quick moments, but I take immediate action. And what happens when you take immediate action is you don't have time to think about fear. Fear is something that grows in your mind. The longer you can sit up and start thinking about, man, I want to do this. And so you start thinking. That's some of you right now, sit in meetings at work, have these unbelievable ideas that pop in your head over the course of the meeting. And instead of immediately raising your hand and speaking or just speaking out what you're thinking, you sit up and say, no, and you think, and the more you think, the more you talk yourself out of it. By the time the meeting's over, you've tucked that thought so far back in your mind that it may never come out again. Why? Because of fear. But fear fed on itself. It didn't start out there. It started out as hesitation. And then hesitation led to fear, which leads to procrastination and leads to inactivity and leads to never, ever getting anything done. That's how it goes. Take action. Stop settling. Raise your conviction. If there is a fear I have, and it's a fear of not honoring my design, or better yet, not honoring my designer by failing in my design. By not living life at the level of my design, I fail my creator. I fail the designer. And that's the one thing I refuse to do. I refuse to be given the greatest assets that can be given in this universe and sit on them. I take my bumps and my bruises in life, but I can look back over my life and say, if I wouldn't have took that hit, I wouldn't have experienced this. If I wouldn't have got knocked down here, I wouldn't have experienced this. And I can just look back over my life and see that over and over again. For every time that I've been down, that's been a time that followed it, that I experienced unbelievable success, unparalleled success. And that comes from just simply saying, I'm going after it. If it pops in my mind and it brings me joy, trust me, I'm going after it. With that being said, I'm going to jump off here. But look, I'm going to tell you something. It's all up to you. You're going to have to determine at some point in your life, the switch is going to have to come on. And you're going to have to learn there's so much more in life. There's something in me. There's a gifting in me. There's a genius in me. And that's the one thing that I determined out of everybody, that everybody, despite IQ, despite academic achievement, despite poverty, despite Down syndrome, despite autism, despite being declared retarded, despite being born the child of a drug user, despite whatever, every person I've worked with, every person I've encountered, every person I've studied had genius. I have yet to meet a human being, or as my family say, a sapien, that did not possess some form of genius. We simply live in a standardized culture that tries to make everybody operate and function on the same wavelength, the same frequency, the same creative level. And so a lot of people get clarified or classified or assessed this, you're this, so you can't do. No, I'm unique and I don't fit into that box you're trying to put me in. And I'm not going to allow you to force me into it. I'm going to operate outside that box. You go ahead. You can have the damn box. I don't even want the box around me. I'm going to operate over here. Yeah, I know it's safer in the box because that's where everybody at. And if you don't move outside the box, you pretty much know what you're going to get out of life. And in the box, you can kind of just wake up and plow your way through life every day, going and doing the same thing. And you know what you're going to get. I don't want that guaranteed existence. What I want is what I was designed to do, and that is to make a phenomenal impact on the world around me at whatever cost. It's the distance you're willing to go that's going to determine what you get out of life. It's not how talented you are. It's not what people give you. It's not what background you come from. It's the morning you wake up and decide, you know what? Nothing's going to stop me. I'm going the distance. And I guarantee you that day when you make that choice, that decision, what will actually happen is the universe will begin to conspire on your behalf. Things that you've never even seen happen before will start to happen. I know it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be possible. With that being said, I'm checking out here. I mean, tap into the unbelievable potential you have. Access it, activate it, actualize it, and watch what happens. With that being said, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day. As always, it's an honor to be able to sit in front of you and just share what life has given me in whatever way. And hopefully you take it and you do something with it. That's the biggest concern I've had since I started this years ago, is that people will encounter an opportunity and then sit on it. Don't sit on the opportunity. Go after what it is that you want out of life. I challenge you to do that. I'm out of here. I got a bunch of things to do, but it's like I said, it's always an honor. And as I always say, I am going to die on E. I encourage you to do the same thing. I'm out of here. Peace.